Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Omaha. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ben Stark, and we're underway in day 2. This is round number 10, and we have a really nice matchup here, Ben, between Braun-Duin and William Huey Jensen. Both players, though, with, I wouldn't call it an ideal day 1, coming in at 7-2. I mean, these guys will frequently come in at XO or X1 into day 2, and they kind of squeaked in this time.
Yeah, and both players playing a little bit different decks than we see sometimes. Huey playing Splinter Twin.
Yeah, right as you say that, he mills one away with his Thought Scour there.
Yeah, and if you're a BBD here, you might think your opponent was playing Delver when they're Thought Scouring, but then you see the Splinter Twin go to the yard and you kind of know what's up. Meanwhile, Pod, maybe one of the more common decks, but a little bit different take on it for BBD.
Yeah, he has a pretty unique name for the deck. He calls it Cards I Play in Standard Pod. and he actually is playing a few of those, though he's got some modern staples thrown in here too. The two main standard cards that you'll see in this deck is he's got 3 On Offense of the Foremost, and he's got the full 4 Siege Rhino. Even though I'm pretty sure he designed this deck, he's listed the deck designer as Dr. Siegeman Rhinoceros.
So I guess he's saying Siege Rhino pretty much designed the deck.
Yeah, he likes the Siege Rhinos. But the interesting thing about this particular version, Ben, is that yesterday we were kind of putting these Birthing Pod decks on a spectrum of being combo to value. That was kind of the range, because some of them just play a bunch of value creatures and just basically have a toolbox sitting there with the Birthing Pod where they can generate both card advantage and get the specific answers that they need for a given matchup. And then some of them, though, are capable of gaining infinite life, even creating infinite creatures with Kiki-Jiki, and there's kind of this wide spectrum of what you want to do in Birthing Pod. And interestingly here, BBD is fully on the value end. He just doesn't have any infinite
No combo. The things that combo offer generally Spike Feeder and Archangel. That's a combo to go infinite, or gain infinite life, put infinite counters on all your creatures, or Malera, along with a Kitchen Finks and a Sack Outlet.
Yeah.
Usually Visara Seer, but there's a few other ones. Cartel Aristocrat comes to mind. Anyways, Braun-Duin has none of any of those.
He has none of them, yeah. And we've also seen offensive combos out of this deck in the past with Kiki-Jiki, and we've also seen in the Malera Pod deck that you mentioned with Kitchen Finks that you can also do it with Murderous Redcap to dome your opponent for $1 billion. But again, none of those.
None of it.
He's just grinding and grinding.
He's basically an Abzan mid-range deck, and he's playing Birthing Pod because, hey, it's a great card when you have varied casting cost creatures that have come into play effects and Undying and things like that.
Yeah, and what you'll see when you look at the deck list for these, like I'm looking at right now, is you'll see a lot of ones, right? It's a lot of one-of creatures that can be searched up with Birthing Pod to go find different answers that they need. Looking at down the list, there's a Linvala, Keeper of Silence for a lot of creature decks. There's Restoration Angel, Shriekmaw, Scavenging Ooze, Wallow Roots, Abzan. There's an Orzhov Pontiff, a Kasali Pride Mage, and a Sin Collector. Those are all one-ofs. Those are all cards that BBD can use Birthing Pod to sacrifice a different creature and go search that one up and get the answer that he needs.
And aside from the Birthing Pod, his whole deck is creatures, so this is basically just a mid-range creature kind of toolbox deck.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He has an interesting backup plan as well. You don't see it on the battlefield right now, but since it is all creatures, he's also got 2 Gavney Township in the list as well. And if things get real mid-range, real grindy, and even start to skirt over to the late game, those Gavney Townships can just turn your random Birds of Paradise and whatever. Now, is Huey? Let's see, he's got a Snapcaster Mage down here. What's going on his side?
Well, Huey was looking for a Deceiver Exarch. He had a Splinter Twin, I believe, and he just didn't have that piece of the combo, because this deck Splinter Twin is a 2-card combo. It's looking for either Deceiver Exarch or Pestermite with either Splinter Twin or Kiki-Jiki. So he had been remanding Braun-Duin's Birthing Pod. He had done it first by hardcasting it, then by snapcasting the remand, just basically delaying the game, keeping it off the board, and drawing an extra card each time that remand resolved. He did just find the Deceiver Exarch.
He just found it now.
Yeah, and now with a Spellskite in play, in case Braun-Duin has a removal in hand, because while we know Braun-Duin doesn't play much removal, he plays 3 Abrupt Decay, but that's it. But Huey doesn't know his list, but Huey's got that Spellskite to protect him from Abrupt Decay. So we're certainly going to see Huey end this game now. You're going to see the combo go to work. Although, Braun-Duin, now that he's able to resolve that birthing pod, might be able to get something that stops the combo.
Let me see what he finds here. Well, it's just Voice of Resurgence because he's only going from 1 to 2, so that's not going to get it done. And with Huey Jensen having the 3 mana for Deceiver Exarch, it looks like he's going to be able to tap down the Razor Verge Thicket there. He doesn't even need to. Noble Hierarch hits the battlefield. BBD is not in a position to play around anything, and Huey's going to breathe a sigh of relief as number 6 player currently ranked in the world says, yeah, sure, make yourself a token. Meanwhile, I'll make myself a few tokens too. And there goes the game. So this is kind of an interesting list from Huey. You mentioned Pestermite and like Kiki-Jiki. These are all cards that we've seen in various numbers in these decks to go along with the Splinter Twins and the Deceiver Exarchs. But both Owen and Huey have really kind of streamlined this deck down. They've got 1 Pestermite to go with the 4 Deceiver Exarch, and they're just running the Splinter Twins, no Kiki-Jikis at all. So kind of interesting that, you'll see those numbers change. There was a time when people were trying to max out on as many of those as they possibly could to just get the, whoops, I win. Or to have the redundancy where it's like if it gets broken up, you just do it again. But here, they're really trying to set up for that one specific turn.
Well, they consider themselves as much a Treasure Cruise deck as a combo deck, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're just interested in thought scouring and probing and, remanding and serum visionsing, and then treasure cruising.
And then cruising right to the finish, yeah.
And their win condition is basically just that combo. But they're not concerned with having tons of combo pieces so that they can do it turn 4 every game.
Right. All right, so here's Josh McClain on our live look-in versus Randall Gay. We saw Randall yesterday playing this sort of Abzan mid-range deck, right? He's the one playing like the Lingering Souls and that kind of stuff.
Kind of a Villia Dell-esque deck. It's, disruptive. It's got, he's played Junk and Jun for a long time. Just Tarmogoyfs and, various creatures, Lilianas, Thoughtseizes, things like that.
I mean, it doesn't look like a particularly cohesive deck, but it also just has all great cards across the board. Just like there's no weak spots in the whole list.
Yeah.
So it's just able to sort of piece together wins using a reliable disruption suite plus a good amount of pressure. Yeah,
it's not a very synergistic deck, but it relies on breaking up its opponent's synergy with a lot of discard and a lot of removal.
Yeah, this part gets really interesting too because one thing we've seen Randall really leverage are the man lands. We see Treetop Village. He's also got Stirring Wildwood you can actually see one right there on the battlefield that he did some work with yesterday too. And he uses those quite well. I think that, a lot of times he faces any type of attrition matchup, he'll find that his creatures tend to get killed. They die to a lot of the removal that gets played in the format, and he cleans up with these Treetop Villages. And, well, speaking of cleaning up, it looks like Randall Gay just won that one. Yeah, he's just got a bunch of value cards. I mean, his deck looks fine.
Yeah, I mean, it looks
I'd certainly give that thing a spin. I have to think that, like, if you're going to come play Modern, you want some level of, maybe not brokenness, but kind of over the top. Like, looking at, like, for example, Braun-Duin's list, he's playing Birthing Pod, basically in a similar type of deck to what Randall's playing in the sense that it's like this mid-range Abzan deck. But Brian can just randomly search up, just whoop, got the exact answer I needed to just completely blow you out. Or
but there's downside too. Like, for example, taking a look at this very matchup, we watched Randall play Owen yesterday, and Randall has lots of removal. So I think that's
tons of it.
Right, a very good, and lots of discard. So I think it's a very good matchup for Randall. Watching BBD play Huey there, I think it's a very good matchup for Huey.
Yeah.
Because BBD has 0 discard in the main and very few removal.
That's right. So what do you? So with that being said, that's talking about Splinter Twin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Randall gives up by not having the flexibility of like a Birthing Pod or something like that?
Well, he's probably worse against Delver.
Against Delver.
Yeah, because discard isn't good against Delver, and removal's only medium against them because they can treasure cruise their way out pretty well. Against a deck like Splinter Twin, all that discard is great. You keep them off their combo. Sure, they play cruises too, but Randall's got the uses. Even if they cruise once, we saw Owen cruise a bunch of times, but he still couldn't fight through the endless barrage of Thoughtseizes and Abrupt Decays and Slaughter Packs and Dismembers and everything that Randall had.
That's right.
On the other hand, Delver's not looking to set up a combo. Delver's just going to cruise and draw a bunch of cards and then play a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that they will basically draw cards and defeat Randall's attrition that way.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, because one thing that we have seen from Braun-Duin in that type of list is a card like Orzhov Pontiff to just sweep away Delver's threats.
And even Siege Rhinos and whatnot. You know?
Very difficult for that deck to deal with. I mean, they have to put 2 cards into it.
And I mean, I think Randall had Siege Rhinos also, but he certainly doesn't have as many creatures to stick around as BBD does. I mean, I know that, you know, Randall's list, he's got 3 Scavenging Ooze, 4 Siege Rhino, 2 Courser, 4 Tarmogoyf, and 2 Lingering Souls. So not a bad array of creatures.
No.
But if you look at BBD, we're talking about 3 Anafenza, 3 Kitchen Finks, Abzan, Orzhov Pontiff, Pride Mage, 4 Siege Rhino, Sin Collector, and 3 Voice of Resurgence, along with a Scavenging Ooze, Shriek Maw, Resto, and Linvala. So you're talking about, you know, BBD has a ton of creatures that are hard to kill and difficult to deal with. Voice of Resurgence in particular is very good against Delver and not very good against Splinter Twin. And he's got 3 of them. You know, Kitchen Finks, same thing. You know, Kitchen Finks is very good against Delver and not very good against Splinter Twin, and he's got 3 of them. So when I look at these decks, that's what I see. I see BBD with a deck that's good against Delver and not nearly as good against Huey Splinter Twin. When I see Randall's deck, I see a deck that's good against Splinter Twin, but not quite as good against Delver.
Okay. It's good. Metagame decisions here in Omaha. Sideboarding, which we're underway here, by the way. Braun-Duin leads off with Forest Birds of Paradise, kind of a classic start for, well, not just this deck, but many. And you ever heard the term Bolt the Bird?
Bolt the Bird has been the rule for 20 years.
That's where it comes from.
If they play a turn 1 mana accelerator, you kill it.
You buzz that thing, and down it goes. So BBD has to kind of rebuild here. But he will have expected that his bird wouldn't live. He's not going to keep a hand that's super reliant on just one Birds of Paradise. That's way too risky. But interesting, out of the sideboard, I see that BBD has 2 Chord of Calling, which allow him to search up some pretty interesting answers at instant speed, assuming that he can get some type of board state going here. Reclamation Sage can break up the combo.
I think Spellskite can take a Splinter Twin and break it up also.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's he's prepared after sideboard for a deck like Huey's. He's got the 4 Thoughtseize, Spellskite, Reclamation Sage, 3 Path to Exile.
Yeah, the Orzhov Pontiff
Chords.
does it too, right? At least for a turn where Huey goes off, makes a billion 1/4s, and then after he declares attacks,
That would work.
BBD can fog those for a turn if he just needs a window to be open.
That would work, but I'd be surprised if the Pontiffs are still in. I mean, if he can chord for 3, he can just chord for other things to break it up, I think, like Quizali Pride Mage, that only costs 2, or Reclamation Sage that costs 3.
Right.
So, I mean,
And he's got Pride Mage in the main, too. So.
Right. So that would work, but I would be surprised if the Pontiffs are in, as that would be their only function.
Yeah, well, yeah. The question really, though, from BBD side is how many
Cards to take out, basically.
Pester Mites. He might not know how many Pester Mites.
Oh, that's true. Pontiff
right?
is considerably more effective against Pester Mite because that's not just stopping it for the 1 turn,
right,
but that will kill it, and then Huey will have to completely rebuild.
Right. Now, Huey's, kind of played around that whole scenario pretty well by only running the 1 Pester Mite, but BBD might not know that. By the way, Anafenza has arrived.
Yeah, and Anafenza, 3 mana 4/4, stops some combos and synergies by, that little line of text at the bottom of the card.
That very annoying.
Yeah, one thing to note, though, from glancing at these lists, like sideboard-wise, I'm not sure exactly which cards BBD took out, but he brought in a lot of cards. He knows that he is not prepared for this deck game 1, but 4 Thoughtseize, a Spellskite, a Sin Collector, 3 Path to Exile, 2 Chord of Calling.
Wow.
That's a lot of Reclamation Sage. That's a lot of excellent cards after board against Splinter Twin.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, it's almost like he knew that this wasn't a good matchup game 1, and he wanted to have a good sideboard against it.
It does kind of feel like that. All right, here's the scavenging news now for Braun-Duin, but William Jensen is getting aggressive here. Before attacks, he is going to throw down Deceiver Exarch. He has the Splinter Twin in his hand, and the question is, do you just go for it? Does he's got to look at his hand?
It depends on his hand, but I think he will just go for it, because it's not like if he waits a turn, it's going to get any better. He doesn't have Dispel or anything to protect it. He does have a Serum Visions, so he might be thinking, well, maybe I should Serum Visions because I'm not under that much pressure.
Yeah, he is. It's kind of interesting, Ben. I think he's actually drawn his main deck Pestermite and his sideboard Pestermite here as well. So he does have other targets that he can try to set this up with, where he can kind of overwhelm the board with those. The question is just, does BBD have a way to interact with whatever he decides to target with the Splinter Twin ultimately.
Yeah, and the thing about a situation like this, Huey's not facing lethal, not even close. BBD has a nice board, but it's not going to deal 18 this turn. So he can wait the turn. But let's pretend he didn't have that Serum Visions. You're not going to just take a random draw and wait a turn. That also just gives BBD a random draw. So there's just as much chance he's going to draw Disruption as you're going to draw Dispel or something like that.
Right.
On the other hand, since Huey had the Serum Visions, he sees 3 cards to try and find, and really 4th if you just count the draw step, if he scries both to the bottom, to try and find Dispel or Spellskite or something to protect his Deceiver Exarch Splinter Twin combo. So I think in this case, he can afford to wait the 1 turn.
Right, and remember with those 2 Pestermites in hand too, you can keep Unoffensive the Foremost from really hitting him at all. And again, like you said, he's at 18. He's going to take almost no damage. Meanwhile, Nom 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 says the Scavenging Ooze is going to gobble up Huey's graveyard here and make Treasure Cruise a lot harder to cast.
Yeah, one of the nice things about that Deceiver Pestermite combo is that, with that tap ability, is not irrelevant. You drop that if you need to stay alive and tap their biggest attacker. You drop that into their turn and tap one of the lands they were going to use to cast spells to disrupt you on your turn. It's a pretty annoying combo.
It's really, really annoying. Yeah, it really is. And it can do crazy stuff too. Like, sometimes your opponent plays through the breach.
Oh, wow.
Slams Emrakul, and you're just like, yeah, you can have that.
No problem.
Acceptable. All right, Scavenging Ooze is going to battle here, and it's going to start actually eating BBD's creatures to start getting a clock going. He knows that, if Huey Jensen's plan is to tap down on Offensa, maybe do it again, which he just did, and then maybe chump block once, he's just never going to be able to get in there with it. So Scavenging Ooze is going to have to do the majority of the beatdown. But thanks to Noble Hierarch and the counter, it did just as much as the Unoffensive would have done almost.
I think Huey might be going beatdown this game. I'm really taking a look at his hand in this board.
This is interesting.
He's got another Pestermite in hand. I don't think he's even going to go for the combo anytime soon. I mean, he'll do it obviously if the coast is clear.
Yeah.
But I think he's just going to hit for 3 here. He's going to pass a turn probably in Pestermite and Offensa.
Well, you know what he did? He played Serum Visions, drew the card, and he put Flame Slash on top of his library.
Yeah.
He kept both.
Yeah, because with BBD only having 2 threats, if he kills one and he taps one with a Pestermite, he then gets to hit for 5.
He's got 5 power up, kills him in 3 turns here, maybe a Lightning Bolt to finish off Brian.
It's actually a close race.
All right, now we get to get a little information here, though.
Here's the problem with Huey's line. I'm not saying it was right or wrong, but now he runs into a Thoughtseize that BBD almost certainly didn't have previous.
Right.
So now he's not going to have the option to combo off. But,
and it's Splinter Twin Treasure Cruise.
And this is an interesting little spot.
This is super interesting.
We haven't actually seen Braun-Duin's hand, but if he has an Abrupt Decay or something, he wants to take Cruise and leave Splinter Twin.
Right.
But if he takes Cruise and leaves Splinter Twin, William has to believe that he does have an Abrupt Decay or something like that and would be hesitant to go for the combo. The thing is,
he might force him.
Well, he might go for it anyway, just because it's not that bad for him. He puts it on the Deceiver, it gets Abrupt Decay. He's only losing 1 point. The Splinter Twin's not doing anything in his hand.
Yeah, totally. Now, he took the Splinter Twin, but another interesting point here is that top card of Huey's library, he put there. He knows what that is. It cannot be a land, right?
And the interesting thing about that is Huey now pretty much knows that Braun-Duin does not have removal.
Right.
So, and Braun-Duin's not even going to try and rep removal here. He's just keeping Huey off the Treasure Cruise.
It's just too risky.
Yeah,
but now he can play the Treasure Cruise thanks to the Splinter Twin being in the yard.
Well, I don't
he had a Scavenging Ooze too.
Right. And, so now if he has a second Splinter Twin, he wins. But, Braun-Duin clearly couldn't beat the Splinter Twin.
Yeah.
If he had a removal here, he would have took the Treasure Cruise and left the removal up for Splinter Twin, and he definitely wouldn't have tapped out on his turn here to prevent this Treasure Cruise. Huey knows the coast is clear now.
Yeah.
And spots like this are interesting, games like this are interesting because Huey could have won on several turns by just casting the Twin, but Brian had 2 cards in hand, was representing removal, and Huey didn't want to just, lose this whole combo.
Right.
You can't really blame him for that.
No. Wow, Thought Scour into Thought Scour, and geez, this Treasure Cruise got so much easier.
And this is a very fortunate turn of events for
Look
Huey.
at this. With that Thought Scour on the stack, Huey had no cards left in his graveyard.
Yeah.
Now he's playing Treasure Cruise for 2. That is just insane.
But let's see what he finds because, lands aren't going to help in this spot.
He finds Snapcaster, land,
Flame
Slash.
Looks like Huey's going to go back on the beatdown plan.
He's going to take out the Scavenging Ooze here?
Yeah, the Ooze or the Anaffenza.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. And then hit with the Flyers. And then next turn he's got Snapcaster. He should probably take out the Ooze, like you said, so that he can use his Snapcaster.
Yeah, probably.
Because, if he Flame Slashes the Ooze now, he takes a big hit from that Anaffenza, but the next turn he can always Snapcaster the Flame Slash and kill the Anafenza.
Huh, he just does nothing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Surprised.
What's the deal with that?
I don't know. I'm really surprised. This is one of the first plays Huey's made that's really kind of shocking to me. I don't know. I don't know why he wouldn't Flame Slash either of those nice creatures, Anafenza or Ooze. I would think if I was Huey, it would be close which one I killed, but I would certainly kill one of them.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to take... I think there's no creatures in the yard, so he actually gets to just block the Ooze. Oh, no, there is. There's the other Scavenging Ooze right there. So, yeah, he's taken 8 here.
Yeah, I mean, he can afford to do that. I just don't see the upside necessarily. Maybe he needs to say Flame Slash for Spellskite or something, but I don't know. That doesn't seem like the kind of game you're playing. You don't even have the combo in your hand. If Huey had Flame Slash that Ooze, this turn he'd be able to Snapcaster back to Flame Slash, killing Anafenza. He would be facing no threats.
Right.
I mean, I know that I don't know the Splinter Twin deck that well.
He can actually get him to 1 here.
Yeah, Huey does, so...
He has to Flame Slash the Noble Hierarch, and then he can attack with the Snapcaster Mage plus the team he has right now to put BBD down to 1.
Yeah, I mean, BBD could then ooze the Hierarch and go back to 2.
Yeah, and even 1 isn't...
Oh, wait, creatures are getting removed when they hit the yard, though, but not... Anafenza only does your opponent's
Only
creatures.
your opponent's,
right.
yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not sure why Huey made that play. Like I said, I know he knows this deck. It's a kind of new, interesting deck that him and Owen brewed up with this, Thought Scour, Treasure Cruise engine, as well as the Splinter Twin combo. But I don't see the reason not to Flame Slash last turn to take out one of your opponent's 2 good creatures, specifically the Ooze, so that the Flame Slash stays in your graveyard, knowing that the only card in your hand is a Snapcaster Mage. So, I mean, that would have been my play. I'm not saying, I'm sure Huey has reasons. Maybe they'll emerge next turn when he makes a different play, and we'll understand. So that would have been my play last turn.
So what's happening here is that they forgot Anafenza happens like with cards like Thought Scour. So Huey, I know he put 2 Pyroclasm in the yard. He may have put 1 creature in there too, which allowed that sequence with the Treasure Cruise. And it is
there was one
just too late.
I think.
Yeah, I think there was a Spellskite that got milled. So, yeah, I mean, even pros, will forget those static abilities sometimes. Yeah. It's a new card too, so that's tough for BBD.
If it was just the 1 Spellskite, then Huey had 2 mana for the turn, the fetch land, and 1.
Yeah.
He could have just paid the extra 1. It could have made a big difference, but in this case, I don't think it did.
It might not have, but then again, Huey having 2 mana up when he passes a turn back to BBD can certainly change how BBD plays. Like, you don't want to.
No, you certainly want to do it correctly. In this case, I don't think BBD's playing around too much since he's losing the race on board to these flyers.
Right, I agree.
It's pretty interesting.
Oh,
Huey deciding. So obviously his reason.
It might be an Ancient Grudge and not a Flame Slash.
Oh, that would make sense. That would make sense. Yeah. Because I was going to say, Huey ended turn Snapcaster, so it would seem like he's trying to go aggro, but there would have been a lot more value in Flame Slashing, Snapcaster, Flame Slashing. So it would make sense if it was an Ancient Grudge, since there's no targets for that. It would. If it's a Flame Slash, I still don't agree with this line. If it's a Ancient Grudge, then of course I agree with this line because there's no artifacts to cast.
Right.
There's no artifacts in play for him to cast the Ancient Grudge and kill. So right. We'll see if we can get a better look at Huey's hand before the end of this game.
Yeah, that would explain it though.
It's funny. So Brian's at exactly 4, but Huey is going to have to block here, which means Brian can gain a life because the Scavenging Ooze is going to be able to eat whichever creature Huey blocks with. So,
well, but it still won't go to his yard though, right?
Oh, right, because Brian's own Anafenza locking the Scavenging Ooze out of the game.
So he needs to have one of his own creatures die somehow?
Yeah, so he needs to have a removal.
How about a Birthing Pod?
Yeah, Birthing Pod would be great. Even if he has like an Abrupt Decay, though, he could kill his own...
You can just kill Pestermite then.
That works too, yeah. He can kill his own Noble Hierarch after Huey attacks if he thinks that's better. Which it actually could be, because if he attacks with both creatures, if Huey blocks both, or then Huey attacks with all 3 and he blocks and Abrupt Decays. Either way, if he has the removal, he's good. If he kills Pestermite or his own guy.
Right. No more creatures left in his yard, and BBD is deep in the tank here, but it's not looking good.
BBD kind of like, wow, did I really lose by 1 point here because I couldn't gain life? Because of the Anafenza Scavenging Ooze reverse synergy here.
Right. All right, what has he got?
It looks like he's going to have something. A removal spell makes this attack lethal, I think.
It does.
So it looks like
if any 2 of these creatures get in,
Yeah.
Huey dies.
And it looks like he has the Abrupt Decay, so now we have to see if Huey has anything. Flame Slash or Ancient Grudge. I have to assume it's Ancient Grudge, because if it was
It is Ancient
yeah,
Grudge.
if it was Flame Slash, he would have cast it like we talked about.
All right, so BBD picks up a really close one, hitting for exact damage in game 2 there. Woo!
I'm relieved, just because I think Huey's one of the very best in the world. If that was a Flame Slash, I would start to question my judgment.
You would be like, what is going on
Yeah.
here? Yeah, but it turns out it had no target.
It was an Ancient Grudge with no targets, so I don't know whether or not it's right to bring that in, probably, because he has pods. I know that you can't. His play was right there because there was no targets for Ancient Grudge. Yeah, he had no options.
He's probably anticipating Spell Skites on the other side as well. All right, so let's jump back over to Randall versus Josh here. Randall again with this mid-range Abzan deck. No Birthing Pod, though. Oh, looks like he's got Fulminator Mages going, too. Josh McClain, on the other hand, is playing a Birthing Pod deck straight up, and he's got one on the table along with a Shriek Maw, but it looks like he's going to take a bit of a thumping here from Randall. Wow, another Fulminator Mage, too. I see he's already got one of those in the exiled zone. It looks like those aren't doing particularly great work here, though, as Josh has already got 5 mana on the battlefield, or 5 lands, I should say, so...
No, mostly providing maybe a chump blocker for Shriek Maw, and then powering up the Ooze.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, without the life totals, we don't know whether it's right for him to block here or not.
But it looks like Josh... This is an interesting part, too, is that most of these pod decks don't have a 6. Shriek Maw's converted mana cost is 5, so Josh would be pressing to getting a 6 with his Birthing Pod, but most of them don't have one. They used to run some combo-y stuff with, like, Sun Titans or whatever, but all that's kind of fallen to the wayside of these decks as have streamlined themselves. And here's Eternal Witness.
Not the most effective against Scavenging Ooze.
No. Josh targeted something.
Yeah, knowing that it was going to get used, Josh just targeted it like a Tectonic Edge or something, I think. Something not that awesome.
I think it was a Gavany Township, but
yeah.
Meanwhile, Birthing Pod gobbles up another victim here. This time it is that
Witness.
Eternal Witness.
So he's going to get a 4.
Yeah. So what can he get
Well,
here?
Restoration Angel on that Shrink Maw looks pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. Clear out that Ooze. It would leave... Yeah, that's exactly what he does, Ben. And it does leave the Stirring Wildwood alive over there, but that doesn't do much against the Restoration Angel, so...
A pretty comfortable spot for Josh.
Yeah, this looks really nice for Josh McClain here. He's down a game, so he needs to find himself in a comfortable spot here.
Heading to game 3 in both matches, I think.
Yeah, this one does look...
I think Huey and BBD are starting game 3 now.
Okay, we'll jump back over. Keep an eye on this Randall Gay versus Josh McClain match that you see going on in the back table there.
For those at home, I use the nicknames kind of interchangeably, but Huey is William Jensen and BBD, Braun-Duin.
Yep.
The BBD a little more intuitive than the Huey.
Yes. You know, it's funny, a lot of the old school guys call him Billy.
Yeah, I
but
think...
for me, he's never been Billy.
Me neither. I've known him a long time, but I think that's when he was a kid in, you know, in Massachusetts. I think that's what people called him.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I met him, he was Huey.
Yeah, it turns out BBD rolls off the tongue a little nicer than WHJ. That one is, we never tried to make that one stick. Ooh, nice hand here, though, for Huey. He's got 2 different combo pieces and Splinter Twin as well.
He's got action. But,
yeah.
You know, if we just take the Splinter Twin here, there's no card drawing. There's no more copies of that. So, you know, he's going to have to find stuff.
Is that what you anticipate BBD taking?
Well, it depends. It depends on his hand. I mean,
if he has Abrupt Decay, does he bother?
Possibly not. If he has Abrupt Decay, he might take Snapcaster. I could see him taking one of the Pestermite or Deceivers, knowing that he can blow up the whole combo with Abrupt Decay. I'm not really sure. If he doesn't have removal, Splinter Twin's the no-brainer.
Right. And indicating that he might not, he takes the Splinter Twin.
I think this this game could highlight the power of Owen and Huey's build in that, they're less focused on their combo. He can Thought Scour and a Treasure Cruise, things like that. On the other hand, of course, we saw his hand, and we know that Huey doesn't have anything like that. So now we got to see if we're going to be able to draw out of this.
Well, he's got a Deceiver Exarch, and once again he finds himself with both Pester Mites.
I think he'll probably...
Curious if he goes for the upkeep here.
I think he probably will. I don't see why he would want to leave BBD extra mana. He's got 2 Pester Mites and a Deceiver in hand. He might as well start running them, I think.
It feels like it, and like you said, the clock can add up pretty quickly. And we've seen this with Pester Mite. Anytime it's been legal, you can just aggressively use it during your opponent's upkeep to effectively take them off of an entire mana for an entire turn. It really can set people back a long way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing here. BBD, yeah, he's going to tap down the Birds of Paradise. And that's going to set BBD back a turn as far as his mana development goes, even though he was ahead a turn, thanks to the bird. So he's kind of at parity now, but...
And I'm starting to get a glimpse at Braun-Duin's hand, and I think I see an Abrupt Decay and a Path to Exile, so I think he's got some disruption. But I don't know if he has any real solid threats here. He might just need to kill that Pester Mite.
If he's going to do it, he's going to want to do it now.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he does. I mean, we saw Huey almost raced BBD in that last game. Oh, yes, the fetch land dance that we all enjoy so much about Modern. In the early turns, there's a lot of fetch lands that happen, and that means a lot of shuffling. But usually once they get their mana set up, it means they can cast almost anything in their deck, so we get a lot of good magic after that.
So I think this turn, Huey just played a Breeding Pool on tap, paying the 2 life. He doesn't have any 4 mana cards, but he drew a Remand. So I think he's not going to Pester Mite and tap a permanent, so that he can Pester Mite, on tap one of his own lands, and cast Remand this turn.
Oh. I like that.
Yeah, because it seems like, he's got little creatures for days. He doesn't have Splinter Twin or Treasure Cruise. So I'm guessing he's just going to try and delay Brian's progress and get some pressure going. And, with a Snapcaster, he's going to be able to Snapcaster that Remand.
Yeah.
So, he's going to be able to draw some cards, deal some damage. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I mean, this isn't exactly a aggressive deck here that Huey is playing.
No, it does have the angle where it can attack, but it's not an aggressive deck. Huey, by the way, BBD just played a land and said go because he's got Restoration Angel in his hand, and he's trying to decide right now if this is the window that he wants to try to resolve it, as Huey doesn't have any reasonable counterspells for a Restoration Angel right now.
Yeah, one thing I like to talk about from time to time, it would certainly be reasonable for him to play it here, certainly be reasonable for him not to. But if he was gonna, he should have decided that on his main phase, when you could potentially have other things to think about, because he kind of gives away to Huey that he's got a Restoration Angel in his hand. I mean, it doesn't have to be a Restoration Angel, it could be a removal or something.
You mean he should have said, if Huey plays Pester Mite,
will I rest on while he's tapped?
Not?
And you want to think about that during your main phase when you might have other options that you're deciding whether to cast into their counters or not. Because then they don't really know what you're thinking about.
Right, and now BBD gets, he's going for the value play here of trying to ambush this Pester Mite, but instead he's going to get a little bit behind here. Yeah, probably remanded here.
I do actually think this was the correct play. There's so much value if he gets to eat that Pester Mite.
Sure.
And I don't think resolving this Restoration Angel was particularly key. I mean, it's not like Huey's at 3 or 6, he's at 15.
And he's not getting value off of the resto as far as bouncing one of his own or blinking one of his own creatures, so that's not a thing either.
Right. It's almost like if it doesn't resolve, you have the opportunity to draw something that you can blink and have it be even better.
Right.
Because, the counters Huey has are basically Remand. It's not like Huey was going to Cryptic it and draw a card or something.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Brian did make the correct play.
By the way, I have not seen a lot of Cryptic Command at the tables. It's fallen out of favor a bit.
It's just so bad against the blue-red Delver deck.
Oh, it's just too clunky.
Yeah, their cards are all so cheap and aggressive. Playing Scapeshift, I played Cryptic for a long time, and I finally cut them all from the list that I, would have ran in this tournament that Pat Cox ended up running.
What a sad day.
Yeah, I can't really tout that list as at the moment as Pat went 0-3 after his 3 buys. But, we watched some unfortunate draws against Owen to lead off the tournament.
That's true.
Didn't get to see his other matches, but I don't think he drew too well. So we'll have to see if Brian has any good options. I mean, I don't think that Resto alone is going to do it.
So either. He's found something that costs 4 mana. It could just be the Restoration Angel. Now that Huey knows about it, he's not going to get ambushed, so the coast is clear for BBD to resolve a card like Restoration Angel. He might just want to take this window to do so.
Yeah, it looks like he does have that path, the Restoration Angel. I'm not sure what those other cards are. I don't think they're land, so maybe he's got some removal in hand or something. I'm not 100%.
There's Thought Scour for Huey Jensen. You can see what an engine this deck really is. Remember, he just played a Treasure Cruise last turn for blue. Just blue mana. That was it. And now he's already got 4 cards going back in his graveyard to help that go. And there is Lightning Bolt, take out Birds of Paradise. And BBD says, sure, bends it.
Even producing 6 mana, bolt the bird. No, it's a lot less automatic here. I actually wasn't even sure that Huey would do that, as he could trade Pestermite and Bolt for Restoration Angel if he wanted to, because he has backup creatures. But I think he's just trying to keep Brian under control, knowing that he has Remand, that he has Deceiver. Probably figures if Brian does something, maybe he can tap his on-tap land and then on-tap and win with the combo or something. I don't think Huey has the combo. I don't think he has Splinter Twin in hand, but he does have potential options. He has Serum Visions to find things. He has Snapcaster to snap back Serum Visions or Thought Scour. Definitely things going on here for William Jensen.
It turns out when you play Treasure Cruise the turn before, you've got a lot of options usually when you untap. Crew's doing so much work this weekend.
It's just snapping a Treasure Cruise. That's fair.
Wow. You really get to see the power of Thought Scour here too. Once Treasure Cruise was a thing, I mean, Thought Scour was playable in Modern before that. You could use it to find more food for your Snapcaster Mage, but now it's just insane.
Remember when this was a relatively even game?
I do remember that. Now I'm looking at Huey's hand, and he's just got a full grip. Wow, and here he's found his combo as well.
He has 2 copies of Splinter Twin and a Kiki-Jiki in his hand.
Wow.
Multiple copies of Pestermite and Deceiver Exarch.
So now he just gets to just start unabashedly going for it, knowing that BBD has only got 2 cards in hand. One of them's a path. But still, you can just sort of run him out, right?
That's his plan.
Wow. So BBD's trying to decide when and how to do this.
Yeah, well, he's deciding what he's
do
going
it
to path.
now. Yeah.
I think he's going to path the Kiki-Jiki.
Yeah. Yeah, because that way, if Huey just has another Deceiver Exarch or something, he just gets to go off.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's his exiled pile. Huey doing a quick check to make sure he's got any basics left. He does.
Also, Splinter Twins for days. So this is going to be a pretty tough game for Braun-Duin. I'm not sure if Huey can remove a Spellskite. If Brian were to untap and draw that, or a Court of the Calling for Spellskite, that might hold some potential.
That could. That totally could. I mean, Huey would love to see a Remand. He'll have enough mana to play Splinter Twin and have Remand up as well. With BBD only on 1 card in hand,
Yeah.
you know, next turn could get really good for him.
Yeah,
but-
Huey's hand is loaded. 2 Deceivers, a Lightning Bolt, 2 Splinter Twins, and a Thought Scour.
Oh yeah, so he's actually just got basically 2 full-on go-off combos in his hand. He's got Splinter Twin for this Pestermite, and if that fails, he could just run out Deceiver Exarch and then play the Splinter Twin next turn. Wow.
Yeah, this would take a pretty incredible succession of draws from BBD. Or maybe just a Spellskite. I mean, I'm not sure that he would win the game. He'd still be facing down a lot of creatures from you. He'd then have to draw into a Birthing Pod or something else. But Yui's hand is pretty weak to Spellskite, which is, I guess, why he boarded an Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, for sure. Looks like a forest off the top there for BBD, so this thing could be coming to an end. We've got a game 3 here between these 2 players, but BBD just has not had one of those draws that really has any forward momentum. I mean, he's played spells, look at his graveyard, but he hasn't really done much. He hasn't pressured Huey in any really meaningful way. There's another Thought Scour.
Yeah, I mean, this draw was a little light.
There's that grudge off the top for Huey as well, so now even if BBD did have a Court of Calling, it wouldn't get him out of this. Yeah, Huey looks like he's in great shape now.
Huey continuing to just go beat down.
He's going to kill him in 2 turns.
Yeah.
This brings him down to 4. I guess Huey just doesn't feel any need to take risk on in that way.
Well, I think he has a lightning bolt in hand too, so I think he can definitely win this without comboing, though I think he could also win this with comboing should he have chosen to.
Wow.
Just in complete control of this
Yeah,
game.
he just gets to still had all these 2 copies of the combo while beating down with his Snapcaster Mage and his Pester Mite. Okay, there's a Sin Collector, but I think VBD might just laugh when he sees this. Yeah, he's just going to bolt his face. And he's just going to say, sure, grudge me. It's the only target. Yeah, it gets exiled. And that's going to be it.
Yeah.
BBD's at 1.
Yeah, we got the Deceiver to tap down the Restoration Angel, leaving Huey with 4 creatures to BBD's 1.
Yeah, there's just nothing BBD can do. Plus, he's just got lands in his hand, so.
His only hope would be your play of Chord for Orzhov Pontiff.
Yeah. And even then, he's leaving behind 2 Deceiver Exarchs, which are comboable.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it. Huey having a chat with BBD post-match here, but Huey wins the match 2-1. It was a good match. And yeah, it looks like Josh did close out game 2 as we predicted there, Ben. And that's a game 3 over here. This is 2, I mean, I wouldn't call these decks similar, but they are playing the same colors.
Yeah, they're a little similar. They're not the same. The main engine, if you want to call it that, in Randall's deck being Liliana, board presence, staying power. The main engine in Josh's deck being Birthing Pod. Both decks playing some of the same creatures, but Randall with tons of disruption, Josh with not very much. Some somewhat disruptive creatures, but not, a fistful of Thought Seizes and Abrupt Decays and Slaughter Packs and what have you.
Do we know if McLean is he comboing?
He is playing more of a combo pod. He's got Archangel of Thune along with the Spike Feeder.
Yeah, so talk to us about that real quick, just for people, because there's been 3 or 4 different infinite combos available to these pod decks, and this is kind of the latest.
This one is one of the slightly more straightforward ones.
Yeah.
It's Archangel of Thune is whenever you gain life, you may put a +1/+1 counter on all your creatures.
Right.
Spike Feeder comes into play with 2 counters on it, and you may remove a counter to gain 2 life. So if you remove 1 counter from Spike Feeder and gain 2 life, Archangel then puts a counter back on the Spike Feeder, and then you can just rinse and repeat.
And on itself.
And on itself, and on every other creature you have for that matter.
Right.
So you can do that infinite times.
And it doesn't cost any mana at that point.
Costs no mana, and each time you do it, you gain 2 life, because you take off the 1 counter from the Spike Feeder and gain 2, and then the counter goes right back on the Spike Feeder thanks to the Archangel. So all of your guys grow to infinite size, and you gain infinite life. Not literally infinite, because you're supposed to choose a number, but you can say, I will repeat this process 10 million times,
right.
And then you gain 20 million life, and all your creatures gain 10 million, plus 10 million, plus 10 million.
There you go.
That's usually enough.
Feels like that's probably enough. Especially in a deck that just has random creatures lying around. Only one has to get through.
Yeah. Whichever one of those creatures didn't have haste, whichever one of those creatures didn't have summoning sickness can attack, even though neither has haste. I mean, if you had any other creatures out, not to mention, you're now at 20 million.
Right.
So, usually game. He also has a Revelar.
Big Game Hunter up there on the top.
Yeah, and he also has a Revelar.
Ben's not impressed by Big Game Hunter.
Not necessarily going infinite, but a lot of value there. Just looks like Josh was a lot less concerned with Delver and cards that are specifically good against them, and a lot more interested in playing, a better pod list, let's say, overall. So this has some value in this pod too. This is somewhat value pod. He's got 3 Voice of Resurgence, 2 Siege Rhino, a Spellskate. He's got Eternal Witness. Doesn't have any discard, only 2 Abrupt Decay. So plenty of value in this pod list also, even with that combo.
It's also got a pretty nice board state going here, Ben.
Yeah, I mean...
He's way ahead. He's got Birthing Pod going with 4 creatures versus now no non-land permanents for Randall.
That's the upside of a deck like this. If they're effectively playing a mirror or something similar, if one player has pod and the other doesn't...
You just blow out.
Yeah, it's a huge advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, Big Game Hunter Took down Siege Rhino there. Big game indeed.
Some serious tech. Big game hunter.
Here's Fulminator Mage now for Randall, but that might be too little too late here. I see that he's got Dark Blast in his hand.
Looks like way too little, way too late.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Fulminator to kill a land is not stopping this massive board, plus the value from just continuous potting that Josh McClain is going to get over the course of this game.
And there's also Dismember in hand for Randall, but this is going to cost him 4 life if he fires it off here. Yikes. He's seriously considering doing it, though.
Oh.
Take out Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, stop your opponent from going up the chain a little bit.
Oh, he's actually got another land, so it'll actually only cost him 2 life, but still.
I'm guessing that token might be a Voice of Resurgence token, which would be a 4/4 right now.
Right.
Just a massive board advantage for Josh.
Huge. And yeah, that Birthing Pod being active too means that he gets to go search up something here. He can get a 3-drop, a 4-drop, even a 2-drop, or a 1-drop, excuse me, if he wants. Looks like he's going to play Murderous Redcap, just the old-fashioned way. That's threatening to kill the Fulminator Mage, or at least make it activate itself. So he can take out the Razor Verge Thicket, but then Josh can float mana and still use his Birthing Pod.
Which I'm sure we'll see happen.
Yeah. He's going to have to take a couple of damage and drop down to 8 to do this, but you got to figure that's worth it.
Let's see. He can go get Archangel. He can go get Revelar. Those are pretty much his 5s.
Wow. Either one. I can't quite see his graveyard, of course, but you got to assume Revelark would be sweet. And there it is. Yikes. Yeah, it's like you said, fairly similar decks, but one has access to Birthing Pod. I mean, they have to take a turn off to play it usually. Doesn't affect the board immediately, but they just make up that disadvantage so quickly. And now a card like that just completely takes over, where if you look at Randall Gay's side of things, like his equivalent 4-drop is a Siege Rhino, which is great, but it died, and that's it. It's just sitting in the graveyard now, not doing anything. And Birthing Pod is generating huge advantage for Josh McClain now.
Right, Siege Rhino better against aggressive decks like Delver, but way worse in these mid-range mirrors.
Right, I mean, big game. Got hunted.
Birthing Pod, it costs you some life. It's a little slow against really aggressive decks. It's terrible against true aggressive decks like Burn. Birthing Pod, the card, is terrible.
It's just awful.
Against, somewhat aggressive decks like Delver, Birthing Pod, the card, also not that great. Siege Rhino is pretty fantastic. In the mid-range mirror, where your life total is not that valuable and you guys are kind of grinding back and forth, Birthing Pod is way better than Siege Rhino.
Randall's actually deciding if he wants to fire off this Dismember here. Really feels like he needs to use his mana up. We must still be in the attack step here, as Randall shows that he's at 10, but he's under siege.
Yeah, I mean, if he dismembers either this...
The token...
He can't even do that anymore. Oh, yeah,
it's
he could.
5/5, yeah.
Well, 6/6, but yeah.
6/6,
He still could get it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he pretty much has to do that to stay alive, assuming that's a voice token. I guess he can maybe do something else, but if he's dropping an 8 to cast it, no.
He's going to kill the Scavenger.
It becomes 5/8, so maybe it's not a voice token, I don't know, but that would be lethal.
This would be 9 damage? Oh, it's lethal anyway. Yeah, because he dropped to 8 and takes 9, so that's going to do it. Josh McClain, 9-0.
Yeah.
Now 10-0.
Hey, Pod Master. I know I ran hard into him in the